Hello, I'm the producer Dr. Meaker. I produce all sorts of music from downbeat right to drum and bass. I do lots of remixes, lots of different stuff. I've worked with William Orbit, who produced for Madonna, done a Mr. Jam session of the week at Maidavale. I think the most important thing for a producer is to have lots of energy and some sort of sight into what it is you want to do. You need the energy just because you're an organiser. You've got to organise people, musicians, you've got to bring them into studios, you've got to actually record them, you've got to get engineers on board, you've got to get pluggers, you've got to get all sorts of things. If you just think of a producer as the organiser. I think you're going to need lots of time. Things like computer software and stuff that you need to know. It's always moving, so you just need to be a bit nerdy. You need to be able to get into the studio and spend hours and hours learning stuff. It's important to know an instrument if you want to go out and play that instrument. Some producers are silent producers and they're happy for front people to say they put together a project and they've got a front singer and they just sit back and they may be just doing the sequencing, sampling, or maybe playing a bit of keyboards or something like that. Other producers might lead from the front. There's lots of different ways you can do it. There's lots of different ways you could be. If you're a shy guy, you could sit at the back. If you're more of a confident person, you could produce and lead it from the front. Is it a collaboration, or are you someone that just sits behind and produces other artists and you literally are the man sort of behind the scenes, or the woman, of course? A lot of the best producers out there these days, because technology is so advanced, you don't need to sit there, you don't need to write down notes in order to memorize something. You just don't need to do that. You can do it all in the computer. So I think, like, being able to read music, it depends which circles you're in. It could help you if you're working with string quartets and people like that, and you know they only read written music, or you might not need it. It totally depends on what you're doing, and there's always someone out there that can translate what's in your head and write it down. But no, I don't think so. I think technology is so good now that you don't really necessarily need to be able to read or write music in the traditional sense. If you want to build a career as being a producer, no, it's not something that you can just, I mean, you could go to college and you could go to uni to learn skills, but it comes down to really to you as a person. Like anything that starts from one person, you need to have that drive yourself. I don't think you can necessarily learn it, but you can learn lots of skills that help you to be successful as a producer. It really comes down to just drive, motivation, energy, people skills, and organising skills. Really, that's the bottom line. I think being a music producer is not necessarily something that is a set path. Lots of people find different ways. Some people didn't even plan on being, you know, a big-time music producer. It's just something they did, they enjoyed when they were young. They met the right people, they got into a sound, maybe there was a club night down the road, they got into this sound that was going on, and then, you know, it snowballs from there. So there's no sort of set path, I don't think. There are courses you can go to learn the skills to be a producer in the musical sense, but a lot of it is outside of education. It's to do with how you are, how you act, you know, your networking skills, your ability to be able to pull facilities and funding and things like that in order to make things happen. So there's no set path. You do need to just kind of be motivated, network, and do all you can. Another thing you need to do is learn the technology. I mean, you haven't got to be rich. I mean, lots of people aren't rich, but you need to have some money from somewhere just to buy things that do cost, you know, if you want a Mac, it's a grand. If you want a decent keyboard, you know, it could be £1,000. So it's all done on this sort of computer, mixing desk, keyboards. It's all digital these days. If you're going to produce music, that's how it works. It always has really been about technology for recorded music. You do need to do You need to do something to get some money, whether or not that's someone sponsor you or whether you just go out and work, you know, do a part-time job. It's not always like, I want to be a producer, a week later I'm a big producer. You need tools, so they cost money, and you need to be able to you need to accept that it might take a few years before you can actually get anywhere being a producer. You can be a successful producer if you can think forwards, if you can think ahead of the times, or you can sense what's coming. If you want to be a current music producer, if you want to be successful in the media and in the kind of modern music scene, then you obviously need to be on top of where it is. A lot of the time that's all that's happening is, you know, say for instance we've just had this 80s thing, everybody's on the 80s tip, where it's obvious that the next thing that's going to come is the 90s. And this always happened, there's like a 20-year cycle it seems. So what you grew up with when you were sort of 4 or 5, that stuff influenced how you think. So now the next generation of producers coming through are making tunes that sound like computer games, because they're the sort of computer games that they grew up on. You need to be able to sort of look ahead and try and find something within what you're doing that's forward and forward thinking. You just need to you need to be able to sort of read what's happening so that you can stay ahead of the game. And knowing what I know now, that's the advice I'd give.